University. Hello, Dr. Lawrence
Molly.
Hirshberg. How are you?
Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. So,
Sure.
if the name Hirshberg sounds familiar, your daughter, Shira, is also an expert in nutrition. So, we love having her, and we're happy to have you here.
She has us eating well.
Oh, that's true, I bet. So, we're talking a little bit about mental health, and then we're going to get into the neuroscience aspect of it. But just tell us why mental health awareness is so important.
Well, Molly, recent estimates suggest that about 25% of Americans in any given year have a serious mental health problem. And over the course of their lifetimes, almost half of Americans suffer with some kind of mental health, behavioral health problem. And the problem is that there's too little awareness about it. There's too little acceptance about it. And so many people are not getting the help that they could get if there were greater awareness and more acceptance. There's still a lot of stigma, unfortunately, attached to having a behavioral health problem.
So still having a lot of stigma, so just getting the word out there and talking about it, having discussions like this.
Like this, yeah.
And just having discussions about treatment, having discussions about what mental health issues are out there.
Yeah.
Could better get the word out.
Too often it's seen as a weakness of character as opposed to a brain problem. Brain's an organ like every other organ in your body, and if you had a problem with your kidneys, you wouldn't be embarrassed or ashamed. But for some reason, if we have a problem with the brain, people are. So we're trying to combat that.
Exactly. Which is, again, so interesting because, like you said, if you have a problem with your leg or your kidney, it wouldn't be an issue. You just go to the doctor and work on it.
Right.
So we're going to talk to you today about a way that you can work on your mental health. So today we want to talk about neurofeedback. And some people might not be familiar with it. I know I wasn't familiar with it at all until I talked to you.
Right. Most people are not. In fact, people say to me, why don't people know more? Why don't more people know about this? It's a very frequent question.
Yeah. So, and could sound a little bit intimidating, could sound a little bit scary, but not at all is what you've said. So what is neurofeedback?
It's a way that we directly retrain or reshape brain activity or the coordination of activity in the brain to improve function. So really it's pretty simple. In a way, it's like helping a dog learn how to sit. What we do is we set some targets for brain change. We might have 2 targets.
Okay.
And every half second, we acquire the EEG. Every half second, the live EEG is compared to these targets for change. And every half second that both targets are met, you get some versions of, cool, good job, feedback, reward. And when they're not met, you don't. So in this way, you learn about your own brain activity, and your brain is able to change itself. And there's a ton of research that shows that your brain activity does change when you do this. So
is there anything that, because we were talking, we're like, okay, let's set it up, let's show what it looks like here, and we do have a video. Let me see where it is here. So we kind of wanted to show you at home what neurofeedback looks like, but this is just going to be a short little video. So Tony, let me know if we can see it here, if that works. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So kind of explain to me what this is, what people are seeing, and how it would work.
Sure. This is the visual feedback. And you have the individual has some sensors attached to their scalp that's picking up the brain's electrical activity.
Okay.
And then there are these targets. And so with this feedback screen, the spaceship is representing whether or not you meet one of the 2 targets. And the spaceship zooms ahead when one of the targets is met, and it falls back when it's not met. So you want the spaceship to zoom because that is changing your brain in the direction of improved brain function. The other target is represented by the brightness of the colors around the spaceship. Okay. And so when the targets are met, the tubes, the cave is brightly colored. When it's not met, it turns black. So basically you learn by watching this spaceship and these tubes how to change your brain in the direction of improved function. And the function can be attention, can be mood, can be anxiety, can be learning, can be emotional self-control, self-regulation. All of those are outcomes of brain activity, and when you change brain activity, you can change those outcomes.
Okay, So when the spaceship is kind of stuttering, does that mean you're not getting
Not meeting
more?
targets as much. It's like that moment when the dog doesn't sit and doesn't get a reward. But when the spaceship zooms, that's like the cookie that the dog gets. That's telling your brain, yep, that's what we want.
Okay. So when people are doing, so I'm going to set this down now. So I did go to the gym this morning, and so my arms are getting a little tired from holding up my super heavy computer here. So when you're doing something like this, do you set the standards? Like, how do you go about doing this so where you're not setting someone up to fail all the time? That's what I'm curious about, because if you're doing this, how does the spaceship always get to move?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it sounds like, well, how the heck do I do that?
Yeah, how do I get it to move all the time, or how do you set standards?
Right, and so actually what happens is we set a target initially that the brain is already meeting about 70 to 80% of the time. Right? So we find the point where the brain is basically doing it, and what we're trying to do is isolate that 20 or 30% of the time when it isn't, and we're basically saying, no, don't do that, do that. So we set it up so that you can do it, and we're capitalizing on the variability in brain activity, and we're picking the best points, and we're saying that's what we want. So again, it's like shaping behavior. When the dog's bottom starts to go down, you say, cool, because the dog doesn't know how to sit, right? So you start where the dog is, and you find their best performance, and you say, that's what we want.
Okay. And so who would neurofeedback be good for? What have you seen through research and through just by doing this? Who does this benefit the most?
Well, pretty wide range of difficulties can be helped by this. The research, always important to pay attention to the scientific research. The research is strongest for ADHD. But there's also research showing the effectiveness of neurofeedback for mood problems, for depression, for anxiety. PTSD especially is very responsive to neurofeedback. There's some research about traumatic brain injury, and we've worked with people with brain injuries to improve their function. So pretty broad range of difficulties that can be helped with this procedure.
So when you're in a session, what would something look like? Would you sit down and hook you up? Like, tell me a little bit about what a session would look like.
So you're sitting at a desk in front of a computer screen, you're wearing headphones. We have technicians who put the electrodes on. The electrode is just a little silver disc with a wire attached to it. And that brain electrical activity, it's measured in millions of volts, it's tiny. It gets fed to the computer, and the computer processes the signal. And the computer knows the targets. And so every half second, it's looking at whether those targets are met or not. And if those targets are met, you get good things happening on the screen. Spaceship zooms. Okay. In a given instant, in a given half second, if the target isn't met, spaceship falls back. It's really as simple as that. So the job of the trainee is to sit, to watch, to try to pay attention to the feedback, right? Try to not have their mind wander, but take in the information and allow their brain to learn. You can't, if you try too hard, actually that usually gets in your way. So that in some respects, the job is really to allow your brain to learn.
Yeah, and because if you are someone who has anxiety or someone who has depression, if you're focusing too hard, or and you're not meeting the standards, or you're letting yourself be affected by it, I feel like that could be...
Well, exactly, because usually those people, what we're trying to do is quiet the brain, right? And if they're going, I gotta do it,
exactly,
it's going in the wrong direction. And we've had people for whom that was really hard to do that. Just like for some people, meditation is really hard, right, to quiet their mind. So that's a part of the process as well, learning the set that is required to do the training.
So is someone then talking you through this, like working through exercises with you, or are you literally just focusing on it?
Watching. You're just watching the feedback. And our instructions are, your brain is making this go. So just your only job is to watch the screen and be glad when the spaceship zooms ahead. And when the spaceship doesn't zoom ahead, your job is just to be patient, because that's important information for your brain to learn how to do it. So paying attention, being glad when you're successful, being patient when you're not. That's kind of it.
So, and you've seen a lot of research that this actually helps a lot in kids. Have you seen success in children being able to focus on this and being able to see results?
Well, yeah, about half, maybe 60% of the folks that we do neurofeedback with are kids. So we've worked with kids on the autism spectrum, and they've been helped a great deal. Kids with attention problems, kids with blow-ups, tantrums, kids who have really intense emotional reactions. That's actually what led me to start doing neurofeedback, is I felt like I could help them manage better.
Yeah.
But it was almost like their nervous system was this big, huge stallion that they were small little them was trying to control, right? Their nervous system was too much for them. And I could help them manage it better, but who wants to go through life managing this big stallion, right? So that's what led me into neurofeedback, the question of could you actually quiet the nervous system, make it more easily managed so it wasn't such a struggle.
And
it turns out that sometimes it does.
And I feel like too, a lot of times with kids, you don't want to be on medication, or parents don't want to put their children on medication and are looking for options that could help with situations.
A lot of our patients are of three different sorts. One is people who would rather not use medications. Two are people who have used medications or other forms of therapy and failed. And three is people who have had years and years and years of all kinds of other treatment and are looking for something new.
Something new. So what are the drawbacks of neurofeedback?
The main drawback really is that it's not covered by insurance, and it's expensive, and it's time consuming. We have people come twice a week. Each training session only lasts about half an hour, but come into the office twice a week. Families who are busy, lots of after-school activities, it's inconvenient. But there aren't much in the way of there are no lasting negative side effects. There can be short-lived effects. Usually that's gone the next morning.
Okay. So if people are interested in seeing if this might be a reasonable treatment option for them, but they are maybe worried about cost, are there any options out there for them?
Well, you mean lower cost options?
Either lower cost options or grants or anything that could help?
I'm not aware of that. We've had a couple of kids that we worked with whose treatment was paid for by the Shriners.
Oh, that's neat.
But that's really about it.
So if people are interested in more information, where can they go to find you?
Our website is www.neurodevelopmentcenter, one long word, neurodevelopmentcenter.com. And I've actually cautioned your viewers to be careful when you go out on the web. There's a lot that's written about this that makes this seem magical and perfect and that it always works. And that's not true. This is a new treatment that is often, but not always helpful, and you have to be careful about some of the fluff out there on the internet. But our website is pretty down to earth.
And is there anyone that should avoid neurofeedback? If they're interested in it, maybe someone that should avoid it, it's just not the right plan for them?
There are some conditions that we don't have a very good response rate. So for instance, tics or Tourette's disorder. Our rate of success is about 50-50 at best. And so I'm very cautious in talking to people with Tourette's.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of clinical work with neurofeedback for chronic fatigue syndrome. And again, here, I don't think the research is that strong, so I'm pretty cautious about it. But other than, there really aren't any kinds of difficulties that you would say don't even try. It's not like it's dangerous or could be harmful. It could be a waste of time and money.
Okay.
For the main things, attention, mood problems, trauma, autism, useful tool.
And that's what you've seen the research back it up. Not only you, but research in general.
Right, and other people who do this service.
I've seen the results.
Yeah.
Dr. Lawrence Hirshberg, thank you so much from the Neurodevelopment Center. Such a pleasure to have you. Before you go, I'd like to snap a picture with you so we can get that up on Facebook.
I might break your camera.
No.